Dan, you in here? I got your message. Something about Batman being after you for giving some dude at the circus acid? I couldn't really make out the rest. There was like a crash, and then the voices got really throaty. But like not the Bale type of throaty, more like the parody YouTubers online, and like not the good ones. More like the awkward ones. Anyway, it reminded me of college. You know, when you used to get like really drunk and start pretending to be Batman. And I wanted to make sure that you didn't threaten anybody too much. Want to avoid any crises if possible. Okay. I'm out then. Just do me a favor. It was cool and all in college when you started being Batman, but in real life you might get locked up, so be careful with that. Okay, bye. Hey everybody, welcome to the Supersons podcast, where two brothers have set off on an adventure, a quest, a podcast, fully dedicated to making the DC universe a little more accessible. Their mission is to give new readers a chance to learn more about the characters and the iconic stories within DC Comics. As you all know by now, nobody's favorite two brothers / co-hosts have finally been caught by everyone's favorite Cape Crusader and thrown into Arkham. But don't fret, the show must go on. A crisis is coming. And you all need to be prepared for the much-anticipated DC event that should shake up DC television forever. My name is Tyler Pee, and I'll be your host today. I'm here with my sound guy, Eli. Eli, say hi to the dozens and dozens of listeners, faithful listeners of Supersons podcast.
Hello, dozens and dozens of faithful listeners of Supersons podcast.
How are you doing today, Eli? What's up?
I'm pretty good now that they're in prison.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, we're all a little better because of that. We're coming live to you here from the Hideout Studios, the Cove LLC. We're working on the name. To give you all a little background about myself, I am not some cult hero YouTuber or a podcaster. I'm just a fan. I met Dan in college as we were in the same fraternity and started college the same year. Funny enough, we were somewhat of rivals in college. He essentially was the Iron Man to my Captain America, or I guess the Batman to my Superman, in regards to this podcast. Since we don't really talk about the properties owned by the overlords of the West with the Mickey Mouse ears. Regardless of our rivalry, and us mostly having opposing views on everything, we have been friends throughout and we've always had respect for each other. And once I saw an opportunity online to be part of this podcast, I had to take it. Because no matter what differences we might have had or arguments we've had in the past, there was always one thing we had in common. We were both huge nerds, especially when it came to all things DC. My sound guy, Eli, unfortunately isn't that much of a nerd when it comes to this stuff, so before he completely loses interest and walks out, we're going to jump into today's episode. Today we'll be covering the pilot episode for Titans Season 1, Episode 1, entitled, Titans. The pilot aired on October 12th, 2018 on the DC Universe streaming service and was directed by Brad Anderson, written and created by Greg Berlanti, Jeff Johns, and Avi Goldsman. Starring Brenton Thwaites as Dick Grayson / Robin, Anna Schwab as Corey Anders / Starfire, Tegan Croft as Rachel Roth / Raven, Ryan Potter as Gar Logan / Beast Boy. A couple of those names should sound familiar to those who are fans of all things DC, as Greg Berlanti has been heavily involved with the Arrowverse for many years, and Jeff Johns gets mentioned on this podcast at least 3 times an episode. For some of the people who are lesser DC fanatics, Ryan Potter, the actor who plays Beast Boy, is actually the dude who had the video campaign to play Tim Drake Robin next to Ben Affleck's Batman in the DCEU a few years back. Obviously, that never panned out, but I would imagine it went a long way to putting him on DC's radar and helping him get the role of Beast Boy. But let's rewind a bit before jumping straight into the summary and the review. To April 2017. Warner Brothers and DC announced the creation of DC Universe, a streaming service dedicated to all things that ever was and ever will be DC TV, movies, and comics. We were hyped. We found out that there would be classic movies and television shows on there, like the 90s animated Batman television show, or the early 2000s favorites like Teen Titans and Justice League. We were more hyped. Then they announced for the first time ever there would be a live-action adaptation of the Teen Titans, and all us mid-20s peeps who need to go outside a little bit more were euphoric. Then came the first look at Brenton Thwaites as Robin and Tegan Croft as Raven, and we were ready. Then reality hit, and we remembered that this was DC and Warner Brothers, and nothing DC-related can ever happen without being polarizing. We got news that this wouldn't be the 2000s Teen Titans that we know and love, nor would it be the original comic book team. This would be something new, something edgier. And we were a little worried. Then there was the first looks at Beast Boy and Starfire, and there was an uproar online. And then there was the infamous Fuck Batman in the first trailer. And we had arrived. Titans was well on its way, and ready or not, like it or not, the pilot was upon us. And was it going to be the dark, gritty, realistic masterpiece DC and Warner Brothers wanted to sell us on? Or was it going to be the SJW mess Twitter wanted people to believe? Well, that's what we're here to discuss. So here it is. Titans Season 1, Episode 1. Titans. A promise, a portrayal, a perspective. Titans Season 1, Episode 1 starts off how all DC properties with a Batman character must start off. A death in the family. As we witness the death of Dick Grayson's parents through the perspective of a nightmare sequence where Rachel Roth, aka Raven, is having a reoccurring nightmare of the death of Dick's parents. This is our first introduction to the Rachel Raven character, and it's apparent that she's a lot more Rachel than Raven at this point. Rachel seems to not know what she is yet, or how to control her powers, and is told to the audience from the very beginning. Because once she wakes up from the nightmare and eventually is comforted by her mother, she asks her mom to lock the door, and you can see the door is heavily fortified. As if when Rachel sleeps, whatever control she has is gone, and it's a danger to her and everyone around her. Also, you see her lack of control throughout the episode, and the first act of the episode, as she lashes out at her mother during an argument where she confronts her mother about who she really is, and her mother tries to pray the demon away, and the demon attacks her. This is also the first time we were introduced to the inner, darker Raven, as throughout the episode she is being warned and taunted and tempted by her inner self, with the whole Doctor Strange blackout eyes going for her and the inner Sakura temper to match. Also, the obvious observation is that she doesn't have the ruby in her head at this moment, and you're left to wonder when that will come into play. Kudos to Tegan Croft because she really plays both the demon and the Rachel character very well, and you really feel her scenes, and the fact that she really is just a scared teenager who doesn't know what she is, and more importantly, what she can do. Speaking of good performances, Brenton Thwaites nails Dick Grayson in my opinion. I think he nails it because you get the sense for how his Dick Grayson is searching for something. We are first introduced to him as he's staking out a group of thugs outside of a nightclub while looking at a file containing a picture of a physically abused young girl. And here you see the urge Dick has to kick the leader's ass, but chooses to wait for a later time and place. Dick is currently working as a police detective in Detroit, having recently left Gotham and Batman behind. Usually in the comics when this happens, it's because Dick is becoming too much like Bruce Wayne and is afraid to take that next leap. The same goes for this rendition, as you can really tell by the brutality in which Dick later goes and beats up the thugs from before. I mean, damn, Dick, I know they sort of brushed you off when you first arrived looking for Batman, but you didn't need to beat him up like that. Also, sidebar, that Robin costume is fire. And really cool to see on somebody not in a Tim Burton movie. But you can see that something seems off about it. Like he truly doesn't belong in that suit anymore. But back to the ass kicking. Dick beats the hell out of those guys, dragging faces across glass, brick walls, breaking jaws, and has no regard for the health of these guys at all. The scene really shows you where Dick really is mentally and why he probably left Gotham. Something he later explains to his new partner Amy in the episode, Given she doesn't know he left Batman, just his old buddy, Dick explains that he was afraid of what he was becoming. Fast forward a bit more, Rachel comes home to her mother being held at gunpoint by a character called the Acolyte. This is where Rachel finds out her mother isn't really her mother, just before the Acolyte puts a bullet straight through her mom's head. Wild scene, by the way. Like, very graphic, very dark, very much sets a tone and sends a message. Definitely not our favorite 2000s Teen Titans anymore. Anyway, Rachel loses it, and you get a glimpse for her powers, which lets her get away and show up in Detroit, where she is picked up by the cops and meets, just by coincidence, Detective Dick when he walks in to question her, which leads her to immediately freak him out by saying he's the boy from her dreams and the boy from the circus, which then causes Dick to get suspicious and further investigate Rachel's mother's murder. A lot's happening really quickly, right? But wait, as Billy May says, there's more. While all of this is happening, there's a third storyline happening simultaneously. We are introduced to Corey Anders, aka Starfire, a girl dressed for a party with no memory due to what we think was a car accident, and a hit placed on her. A hit we find out was placed on her by her former lover and crime boss in what I believe was Germany. It might have been Russia. Honestly, this part was a little bit out of place for me, and we'll talk about that more later. What we can talk about now is how Corey is slowly realizing her powers are incredible by punching a guy clear across a room and breaking his neck. Brutal, I know. Not as brutal as what she does to her ex-lover later. After he attempts to shoot her, that's when we find out she has fire blast powers. Cool scene, slow motion, her skin becomes comic accurate orange and her eyes glow green as she incinerates the room where her ex-lover and his goons are. Let's pause for a second. Here's the kill count. Dick crippled a few dudes, but no casualties. Raven's mom's dead, but no kills. Corey's on screen for 5 minutes, and there's 4 dead guys. 3 deep-fried and burnt to a crisp. Love it. Conveniently, though, the room is charred, and the goons are more well done than the Black Mom's cooked burgers. But there's one thing in the room that's not destroyed. A picture. A name. Rachel Roth. Raven. And that's where we leave Corey. We come back to the story of Rachel and Dick, and Rachel is stolen by a fake cop, just as Dick confirms Rachel's story and sees her taken away in a police car. Luckily, Dick gets the plate number on the cop car and finds them. This is where we find the Acolyte with Raven, and the Acolyte explains how his mission is to stop the end of days, and for some reason that means killing Rachel, as she is the key to everything. Luckily, Detective Dick arrives on the scene and distracts the Acolyte enough to let inner Rachel come out. And oh, does she come out. She locks the door, and like a demon from a supernatural smoke cloud, she makes her way into the Acolyte, killing him from the inside. When Dick finally gets into the room to find a crying Rachel and a dead Acolyte laying in a pool of his own blood, Dick finally agrees to bring Rachel along and protect her until this is all sorted out. Okay, everyone breathe. That has to be the end of the episode, right? Nah, this is Titans. And what's a comic book show, movie, or Berlanti project without an end-of-episode tease? We cut to an Arrowverse-style before-credit scene where we're introduced to a green tiger stealing a video game from a store, scaring the shit out of Paul Bart, the mall cop, on duty. The tiger escapes the frantic shots of the officer into the jungle where he morphs back into Gar Logan, a.k.a. Beast Boy. And that's the episode. All right, how you, feeling, Eli? Tired? That was a little much to hear about.
I'm a little overwhelmed, honestly. I really want to about. I'm stressed.
I'm stressed too. This episode was a lot to digest, with all the Easter eggs and plot points foreshadowing future episodes. Let's talk about it, though. For one, this episode neither is a masterpiece, nor is it the dumpster fire the internet thought it would be. It's a solid pilot. It does a good job introducing you to the characters and really letting you know where they are in the world. It also does a good job showing you how really lost each of these characters are, and shows you how much they really actually need each other. Rachel and Dick might have found each other, but Corey is a person without memory. And Gar is turning into a tiger just to steal video games out of a store. Dick was an angry man looking for himself and a purpose, and Rachel is looking for answers and control. The storylines are laid out, and a bigger threat is coming. For them to survive, they'll need each other, and Titans Episode 1 shows you that. The action scenes were solid with Robin, and seeing Rachel's powers in live action were the right amount of uncomfortable and terrifying that we all really needed. Additionally, the subtle and not so subtle nods to Batman and the House of Blood and Trigon were all really cool to see in live action. If you remember, at this point in time, we didn't really know what was on the table for Titans to use, as all the shows within the Arrowverse had strict rules and were not able to use characters that were big in movies in their shows. Titans name drops the Joker and says fuck Batman straight up. And actually, fuck Batman straight up. It seems like everything is on the table at this point, and that's an exciting prospect for this show. I had a few gripes with the episode, but nothing too big. The CGI at points was shoddy, and there was a weird blue filter throughout the entire episode that made some scenes sort of weird. All things that would be fixed throughout the series. At least you would think they'd be fixed throughout the series. Additionally, Starfire. I actually liked what Anna Schwab did with the character throughout the episode. This would be a very different Starfire than the animated rendition, but she did well with the direction she was given. My only gripe would be her scenes felt out of place to the story being told in this episode. Sure, they tie it all together in the end with her story when she finds the picture of Rachel, but all in all, I think she might have been better suited being truly introduced in a later episode like they're doing with Beast Boy. Again, a small gripe, because I really like the New 52 promiscuous, powerful woman spin that they gave the character for this rendition. I just found myself taken out of the moment in her scenes due to the timing and being cut away from bigger scenes with Detective Dick and Rachel. All in all, Titan Season 1, Episode 1, Titans was a fun ride that made me curious of what comes next in the universe and see how all these characters will fit in together and the story moving forward. And at the end of the day, that's exactly what a pilot's supposed to do. Personally, the Arrow, Flash, and I know we're not talking about Marvel, but Daredevil pilots probably still rank above Titans. But this was really an enjoyable ride, and I hope this breakdown gets you into the show if you aren't already 2 seasons in. Alright guys, we got to every podcaster's favorite part of the episode, the shameless plugs. First person I want to plug is my sound guy, Eli Bronstein. In all honesty, he's awesome. And full disclosure, we tried to do this a couple of days ago, and I fucked this up pretty horribly. And he definitely was super patient with me to help me out, and I really appreciate it. You can find Eli on Instagram as Eli Bronstein. He also has some cool artsy things he does. One being ESB Photographer on Instagram, or ESB Perspectives. You'll find a bunch of cool pictures. There's a nice cute dog on there. Definitely check that out. Also, you have Eli doing some of his sometimes spoken word, sometimes rapper, all the time artsy tech guy doing some weird stuff called Bell Ronstein. The album's called Interloper. Check it out. You can find it on Instagram at Bell Ronstein, and it's available on Spotify. Eli, where else is it available?
Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, Bandcamp, and CDs, but no one has a CD player anymore.
Yeah, so do the streaming services things or buy a CD. Help my man out. He's doing great. As I mentioned earlier, I'm not a typical podcaster myself. I don't really have a podcast, Twitter, or Instagram, but you can follow me at Mr. P17 on Twitter. And look out, we might mess around and do some things. Thinking about throwing around something called the Type Easy podcast, where we'll break down pop culture, movies, videos, and television shows and just shoot the shit. That's if Eli isn't over me by now. But we'll see. Next, I'd like to plug Michael Kirby McGann. Michael Kirby is a singer, songwriter, and young teacher in the world trying to make a difference. You can find him at Michael G. Kirby on Twitter. He currently has an album out called Spying on Heaven, where 100% of the proceeds of his album go to the New York Food Bank. This philanthropic event started on December 10th, 2018, and goes until December 10th, 2019. One album purchase, every stream, every donation counts. To date, the partnership has made over 7,000 meals for the homeless through the New York City Food Bank, so don't miss out on your chance to help. The album is available for streaming anywhere you listen to music or podcasts, Apple Music, Spotify, etc. Available for purchase on iTunes or Amazon. There are more meals produced for every album that's purchased, but everything helps, so please stream. Visit at Michael G. Kirby on Twitter or musicmakesmeals.com for more information. And lastly, I got to give a shout out to Dan and Jake. Thank you guys for taking this opportunity and giving me a chance. You can find them always at DC Supersons on Twitter, or you can visit their website, supersonspod.com. I mean, it's Arkham. Everyone knows people don't stay in Arkham, or Batman wouldn't have a job. So I'm sure they'll come out soon. Continue to listen, support them. Thank you guys so much, and have a great day.